Most people think they know their legal rights. They don't. And that becomes a serious problem when they make decisions based on things they heard from movies, social media, friends, or random posts online. Because some legal myths are just embarrassing. But some can get you fined, sued, fired, arrested, or can seriously damage your case before it even starts. So in this video, we're breaking down 10 legal myths people still believe, and why some of them are way more dangerous than they sound. Let's start with one almost everybody gets wrong. Quick disclaimer. This is general legal education, not personal legal advice, and laws can vary depending on where you live. But these myths are incredibly common, and believing the wrong one at the wrong time can cause real damage. Myth number 1. If I didn't know it was illegal, I can't get in trouble. A lot of people think ignorance protects them. It usually doesn't. In most situations, I didn't know is not a legal defense. Because if not knowing the law erased responsibility, almost everyone would use that excuse. Now, there are situations where intent matters, but as a general rule, not knowing something was illegal does not automatically protect you from consequences. So the takeaway is simple. Not knowing the law is not the same as being exempt from it. And the next myth is one Hollywood helped spread for years. Myth number 2. Police always have to read you your rights. This is one of the biggest TV myths ever. A lot of people think that if police don't immediately read those famous lines, the entire case falls apart. That is not how real life works. The issue is much more specific than people think, and it absolutely does not mean every arrest or every investigation becomes invalid just because it didn't happen the way it does in movies. This myth gives people false confidence. They think they've found a technicality, so they keep talking. Bad idea. Real legal situations are more complicated than TV makes them look. And that leads directly into myth number 3. Myth number 3. If police ask to search, I have to say yes. This one gets people into trouble all the time. A lot of people hear a request from police and treat it like a command. But a request, pressure, and a legal obligation are not always the same thing. That's where people panic. They think saying no makes them look guilty, so they agree just to get it over with. And sometimes that agreement becomes the exact thing that creates more problems. The dangerous part of this myth is that people give up rights because they feel uncomfortable, not because they actually had to. Stress makes people consent to things they don't fully understand. Now let's move away from police and into everyday agreements. Myth number 4. A verbal agreement doesn't count. A lot of people think that if something wasn't written down and signed, it means nothing. Not true. Verbal agreements can matter. The real problem is usually proof. Can you prove what was said? Can you show what both sides agreed to? That's where things get messy. So when people say, well, it was only verbal, so it doesn't count, that's often way too simplistic. It may be harder to enforce. It may be harder to prove. But it is not automatically meaningless. And people make the same mistake when they think legal questions always have simple yes or no answers. Myth number 5. My landlord can never enter without permission. A lot of renters believe this in absolute terms, but legal reality usually isn't that clean. That does not mean landlords can just walk in whenever they want, but it also does not mean the answer is always never. There may be rules involving notice, emergencies, repairs, inspections, lease terms, or local law. This myth causes problems in both directions. Some renters assume every entry is illegal. Some landlords assume every entry is allowed. Both can be very wrong. When the law depends on context, absolute statements are dangerous. And this next myth is everywhere online. Myth number 6. If I delete it, the problem goes away. People send something stupid, post something reckless, or write something damaging, and then think deleting it solves everything. Not necessarily. Deleting something does not mean it never existed. Screenshots exist, backups exist. Other people may already have copies. And in some situations, deleting something after the fact can even make things worse if it looks like someone was trying to hide evidence. So yes, deleting may remove something from public view, but legally, it is not a magic eraser. And speaking of things people say online, myth number 7. If I say allegedly, I can say anything. The internet loves this word. People throw allegedly into a sentence and act like it gives them legal immunity. It doesn't. You cannot take a harmful statement, add one word, and assume you're protected. Context matters. Truth matters. What you imply matters. What a reasonable person understands from what you said matters. So, no. Allegedly is not some legal cheat code. It is not a shield you can hide behind while making reckless claims. And this next myth shows up every time someone gets fired. Myth number 8. My employer can't fire me unless I did something wrong. A lot of employees believe that getting fired must mean the employer can prove serious misconduct. That's often not true. At the same time, some employers think they can fire people for literally any reason. That's not always true either. This is where people get confused, because legal reality usually lives in the middle. There may be issues involving contracts, discrimination, retaliation, protected activity, whistleblowing, or other legal limits. So the myth is dangerous from both sides. Some people assume every firing is illegal. Others assume none of them are. Both assumptions can blow up fast. Now, let's get into one of the most dangerous myths on this list. Myth number 9. Self-defense means I can hit first if I feel threatened. This one can go very badly. A lot of people use the phrase self-defense like it automatically justifies whatever they did. It doesn't. Self-defense laws are usually much narrower and far more fact-specific than people think. What happened first matters. How serious the threat actually was matters. Whether the response was reasonable matters. And in some situations, what felt threatening in the moment may not be enough to legally justify what happened next. So no, simply saying, "I felt threatened," does not automatically solve the legal problem. And the final myth may be the most dangerous one of all, because it makes people ignore trouble too early. Myth number 10. If nobody got hurt, it's not really a legal issue. Completely false. A person does not need to end up physically injured for something to become a serious legal problem. Financial harm can matter. Threats can matter. Fraud can matter. Property damage can matter. Privacy violations can matter. Employment violations can matter. Harassment can matter. A lot of legal trouble starts long before anyone gets visibly hurt, and this myth causes people to ignore problems until it's too late. When evidence is gone, deadlines are closer, and options are worse. Legal problems do not always look dramatic at first. Sometimes they start with one bad assumption. So what do all these myths have in common? They sound simple. They spread fast. They feel true. And that's exactly why they're dangerous. A lot of people get into legal trouble not because they were trying to do something outrageous, but because they confidently believed something that just wasn't true. That's the real danger of legal myths. Not that they sound ridiculous, that they sound reasonable. So before you rely on something you heard online, from a friend, or from a movie, ask yourself, is that actually the law? Or is that just something people keep repeating? If one of these surprised you, let me know in the comments. And if you want part 2, there are plenty more myths people still believe, especially about police, tenants, work, privacy, and self-defense. Subscribe if you want more videos that break down legal myths, rights, and real-world situations. Because when it comes to the law, confidence is not enough. You have to be right.